So a couple of news headlines that I just found in the last week here in Kentucky. First off, the ban on tobacco was passed in the House, but it looks like it's going to fail in the Senate. So that's pretty much the whole story. They want to ban cigarette smoking. It causes lots of diseases and lots of health problems across the state. So it's not just in state buildings, but also in private businesses, and that's the argument of the Senate. Robert Stivers says, I'm personally not a fan of smoking, but I just don't believe it is the government's role to tell a business you cannot have a facility that smoking takes place in, be it at a pool hall, a bar, or a restaurant. And he says that the position appears to be gaining support in the Senate. I don't see there being that type of support in the Senate to pass a bill like that. So that's kind of a contradiction right there, right? There's two sentences. But, yeah, so we'll see how that happens. We'll see what happens. The governor is for it. It has to pass the House, the Senate, when the governor signs it if the Senate passes it. So right now, it's already passed one House, and it passed the House actually narrowly by 51 to 46. So about 5 votes. So that's happening. The thoroughbred breeders was awarded $10 million in incentives. More than $10 million in awards will be distributed for 2014, according to the Kentucky Horse Racing Commission. So it's a horse capital of the world. And in order to keep the thoroughbred industry alive and well here, they're giving millions of dollars to the breeders. So that's happening. Now this is a weird, well no, not this one is it, but the next case is really weird. Okay, but this case here is a missing teen was found in Ballard County on Tuesday. This was written yesterday. So they found a 17-year-old by the name of Christopher Pigg of Barlow dead outside. They say that the cause of death is unknown. Pigg was last seen early Monday at a residence on Batch Road in the Wickliffe community, according to the Ballard County Office of Emergency Management. The Ballard County Rescue Squad, Ballard County Sheriff's Department, Ballard County Ambulance Service conducted a ground search Monday in a general area where it was believed the 17-year-old went missing. The search turned up empty and was suspended at 6 p.m. due to freezing temperatures. At 9 a.m. Tuesday, officials regrouped to continue the search with the assistance of K-9 units for tracking purposes. While en route, officials received word that a body had been found in the area. At approximately 10:55 a.m., the Kentucky State Police said they were called to a field on Batch Road where Pigg's body was discovered by a friend who was helping to search for the missing juvenile. Detectives do not suspect foul play in the death, and an autopsy is scheduled today in Louisville. The case is still being investigated by the coroner's office of state police. I read in another article that foul play wasn't suspected. So why would Christopher Pigg be found dead outside? They said he was just in a field. He was just out in a field, and he was found dead. And I'm sure the freezing temperatures didn't help, but it seems like a very weird case. And also the fact that they said that it wasn't suspected of foul play. So what happened? So this case is actually crazy, okay? So this was written February 16, 2015, 3 days ago. Now there's a 16-year-old boy. They say he's suspected of killing 3 members of his family, which is, it seems to be the case. Jason Hendricks. There's the picture of him. He's 16 years old. So he's 16 years old, and he had murdered his family and led police on a high-speed chase through parts of Baltimore. And he was heavily armed. They said that he had 4 .38 caliber handguns. One of them was loaded, along with a loaded 9mm handgun, a shotgun, and a backpack full of ammunition. So it doesn't. The only reasons that they had actually suspected was that they had cut his phone and computer privileges. His parents had cut the phone and computer privileges off, and the mother had complained to the co-workers that he was really upset about it. So that seems to be the suspected reason for why this had all happened. And they also said that he was like the nicest guy in the world. He was a church man. He went to church all the time. He was part of Junior ROTC, and this is in Corbin. And after shooting his mother, father, and sister, then he drives to Baltimore, where there's a routine traffic stop or something, or some small traffic violation. And then when they try to pull him over, he shot at them, and then he drove away. And while they were shooting at him, they eventually crashes, and then they kill him. So they said that they just trying to wrap their minds around it, right? He was like, he would always show up early for church and help set things up. And 19-year-old Lizzie Hendricks is the family's sole survivor. She was away at college when her brother killed her parents and sister. And then she released a statement. Our family has been affected by the most horrific tragedy. All of us are attempting to make sense of this loss. We are buoyed by the love and support of so many of you who knew and loved Sarah, Kevin, Jason, and Gracie. Your expressions of thoughts and prayers are greatly appreciated. We also appreciate the privacy you're giving and will continue to give our family as we grieve our loss of those dearest to us. Then there's a GoFundMe page to help out with funeral expenses, which has raised in excess of $15,000. Because her costs through all this would be astronomical, we're hoping that she's not saddled with any of it. Police in Kentucky say they're speaking with family and friends to try to piece together a motive for the shooting. And the teen's mother reportedly told co-workers her son was very upset that his computer privileges had been taken away. So it's just weird, bizarre behavior. Just doesn't seem, why did this happen? Why, it does seem insane, just insanity. Perhaps oppression, perhaps the computer and the phone thing was the reason. So, that happened in Kentucky this week. Here's a pretty damning report about how the Louisville is treating juvenile offenders. And the groups are pushing to end routine shackling of juveniles. Anybody that's put into juvenile court is being shackled, and they're shackled. They'll tie their wrist up with the handcuffs, and then the chain goes around their stomach, and so they walk in the court, basically like Hannibal Lecter type perspective, right? Look at this criminal orange jumpsuit and tied up in chains. Now, under current policy, all juveniles, regardless of age or offense, have their hands cuffed to a chain around their stomach, and their feet remain free. And they said this is being done because somebody had ran away. And Major Gerard Bett says, these are not kids. This isn't Sunday school. It's a jail. It's court. Now, what struck me as insane, not only is it humiliating them, and it conflicts with the intention of rehabilitating troubled youth, since you're treating them like animals, they're doing it to everybody. So if you're charged with murder or disorderly conduct, which disorderly conduct is what? Cussing. So if you're a murderer, you get shackled up like an animal. If you cuss, you get shackled up like an animal too. And these are juveniles, right? These are underage. These are not adults. Instead of just being tough with these kids, we need to be smart with these kids. And I'm not some radical purist. You won't hear me say that never should a kid be shackled, but I think it should be rare on a case-by-case basis, said Terry Brooks, Executive Director of Kentucky Youth Advocates. So, they said juveniles used to get into fights with each other, sometimes with deputies, but such skirmishes are rare now. These belly chains do not hurt anybody. They keep people from being hurt. We cannot let our guard down simply because of someone's age. Our deputies are in the trenches. They deal with these prisoners, and that's exactly what they are. That's cold-hearted. This is how they're treating the youth in Louisville. There was a big KET or PBS special actually about how some of the kids who skip school are being thrown into jail for truancy. And so, it's almost like they're practicing, teaching the young people, this is going to be your life. This is how you have to go through life. This is the jail, and you're going to be, and yeah, so it is ridiculous. If you're charged with murder, that makes more sense. But if it's not a violent crime you're charged with, and you're shackling everybody, I remember being in the Louisville jail because of the whole, undercover LMPD debacle, which was ridiculous. But when I went in there, they had already searched me, at the scene for weapons. They went ahead. I went through a metal detector. They searched me when I first walked in, but when I was about to be released, they had to search me one more time. And one of the jailers started getting smart with me. I was talking to the guy next to me about what had happened, and he started making fun of me, saying, "Who are you talking to?" or something like that. And I said, "Oh, I'm talking to him. Who are you talking to?" He goes, "What are you doing?" And I said, "What are you doing?" And he says, "I'm working." It's like, "You don't look like you're working." It looks like you're just sitting there making fun of people. And then that's when he got up and told his friend to stick his finger in my butt. And so I got molested, and it was unnecessary. They didn't think I had a weapon. They didn't think anything like that. It was just for punishment. It was just to, how dare you, we're allowed to make fun of you and treat you like crap, but if you was to speak up against it, then we're going to go ahead. They hog-tied me, and they went ahead and stuck their finger in my butt. And then the guy at the very end gave me some little cheeky grin, like, "I'm not gay," and I was like, "Okay, whatever, man." And eventually they let me go. But seriously, like, what the hell is that about? And so if this is what they're doing in the jails, and then this guy, who was sitting there defending it, he's just basically saying, "They're animals, they're criminals, you gotta treat them like crap." That's, in Norway, that one guy shot up a whole bunch of people, and then he complained because he didn't have enough Xbox games or something. And while I'm not going to say that that's acceptable, because it's not, but it does show you that the amount of compassion in Norway is very high. The idea of rehab is that people can change, and the way that you get people to change is through love, not violence, intimidation. That should be the option of last resort. And so, shackling these juveniles, it just, I think it's a bad look. I don't know what Louisville's doing. Why are you shackling all these kids? Here's Louisville, Kentucky. They just came out with America's Poorest Cities. This is February 18th, so yesterday. And Louisville is the 11th poorest city in the nation. We're also, I've heard different numbers. We're the 25th, or not we, I don't live in Louisville anymore, but we're the 25th biggest or the 17th biggest city in the country. And so since we're 11th in poverty, that's not consistent. It's not proportional. So that's bad. That means there's more poverty in Louisville than there are in many of the other major cities. And so percentage of the incomes under $25,000 is 29%. So that's a lot of poor people. 25,000 is I don't know. It's not the worst, but it's poverty. Percentage of population with bachelor's degrees, 27%. Percentage of incomes over $150,000, 6.4%. So very tied, a very small amount of wealthy people, but lots of poor people. Poverty is a statewide issue in Kentucky, where close to 1/5 of the residents, or about 800,000 people, are considered poor. 800,000. Kentucky's largest city has been coping with decades. Louisville has been coping with decades of lost manufacturing jobs, deindustrialization, economic upheaval. Even before the Great Recession, the city's West Louisville community was considered one of the most economically depressed urban neighborhoods in the nation, but efforts are on the way to turn those figures around. A 10-year community program called 55,000 Degrees has a goal of ensuring that half the city's working-age adults have college degrees, and with those degrees, access to better paying employment by 2020. So poverty is a huge, issue in Kentucky. It's a huge issue in Louisville, and it's all about the economics. So when you have so much poverty, and much of the budget goes for Medicaid and for school, K through 12, and college, and they're not going to cut, or when they do austerity measures, they're going to cut those services. So these are essential services that poor people need, and then if you cut enough services, you're just leaving the poor people out to sort of just fend for themselves. And so this is a huge problem. This is an issue that needs to be focused on. There was also a report that said 10,000 children in Louisville are homeless. They have no homes. They have no place to go. And so, that's not right. That's ridiculous. And we need to do something about it. being the wealthiest nation, or being the wealthiest country in the world. And you have judges who get paid, six figures. They get paid $110,000, $120,000. You got all the corruption that's running rampant, and so some, it just it ain't right. It's the public good and the public welfare. We should, and it's crazy too, because you got a lot of anti-Obama people in Kentucky, but there's 600,000 citizens who now have health insurance. They now have health insurance who's never had it before. And so they have health care. And to speak up against Obama, or to speak up against some of the programs that are out here. I have a neighbor that is on Social Security, but she said that Obama's giving all the money to the immigrants, so she's not going to vote for Obama or the Democrats because of that. So because of racism, maybe ignorance, they're voting against their own interest. And I think that's, I've heard actually some commentators say, well, they're going to keep on biting the hand that feeds, and let's just cut them off. For every dollar that Kentucky sends to the federal government, they receive $1.50 back. So it's actually a good deal for Kentucky. We're Greece. We get more than our fair share of federal tax dollars coming back into our state. And you see right here, 1/5 of the residents are poor. 800,000 people, and there's 4 million people. So almost 800,000 people is a huge swath of poor people. So Louisville struggling with poverty. This is a good story. I want to end off on the good story, so I'll come right back to this. But many children pretend to be astronauts, and they're doing something with space exploration. This case here is pretty interesting, too. The Kentucky court weighs case of 8th grader prosecuted after having sex with 7th grader girlfriend. So it's an 8th grader and a 7th grader who had sex with each other, and I guess they passed some nude pictures to each other. And the mother found the nude pictures on her daughter's cell phone and then filed charges. And both teenagers could have been charged with the same offenses, but the full weight of Kentucky's law landed on the boy, who pleaded guilty to 2 misdemeanors for having sex and exchanging the photos. Now, you don't want your kids having sex, but if it's consensual amongst them, the law is, nobody under 16 can consent to have sex. They don't have the legal obligation to consent to have sex. Now that's used for adults, adults who are having sex with children. For, an 8th grader and a 7th grader, they're the same age, one's 15, one's 13 or so. There's a great difference. And so this is sort of crazy. So, there was consensual sex, and the boy is the one who's going to jail. The boy had pled guilty to 2 misdemeanors of having sex and exchanging the photos. Lawyers for the boy in the Commonwealth of Kentucky argued for nearly an hour before the state Supreme Court over whether this kind of voluntary sexual conduct between children should be criminalized at all. They had no idea they were committing crimes, said Assistant Public Advocate John Wampler, who represents the boy. Laws in Kentucky and many other states establish that no one under 16 can legally consent to sex. The boy was 15. His girlfriend was 13, and they twice had sex after dating for more than a year. The legislature did not intend that a 15-year-old lacks the maturity to consent to sex with an adult, but then hold him criminally liable for the same behavior with a fellow juvenile. State Assistant Attorney General Gregory Futch counted that the boy initiated the acts, and they fit within the parameters of the crime, and that the defendant's argument holds sway. Sexual activity between a 15-year-old and a 5-year-old cannot be criminally prosecuted. So that's a different case, right? A 15 and a 5-year-old. It's not, they're very close in age, and he's a minor too, he's a boy. And if he's in jail right now, and they said that the state's high court is expected to issue a ruling within a few months. And so, they also said there's only one victim in this case. It's just as illegal for the appellant as a 15-year-old to possess that child pornography as it would be if he was 51 years old. I mean, she had child pornography too on her phone. I mean, they sent naked pictures to each other. So she had a naked boy's picture on her phone. So that's child pornography. So they could be both charged with it. The the girl's parents are the ones that filed the charges, but the boy's parents didn't file any charges. supposedly. I don't know if they tried to or not, but that's what the article said. And so this guy, this 15-year-old guy is going to be, he's in jail right now, for I guess being a sexual predator, for being a pedophile. And if this stays on his record forever, his life is basically ruined. And for what? For something that shouldn't be a crime. And again, it is odd that they would go after the boy but not the girl. They said that he initiated the encounter, and I think that's suspect too. She didn't initiate anything. She had nothing to do with it. She was just just an innocent victim, just with pictures on her phone, and just they dated for a year and they had sex twice. So she was an innocent person who accidentally had sex 2 times. So that's a fascinating case. I can't believe really this is even an issue, and that he's in jail. For this. So last case, this is something to end on a high note. Students get out of this world opportunity. They have been selected to attend a national camp called Mission Discovery. Mission Discovery is a 4-day space camp where students will be trained by astronauts and aerospace engineers to design and propose a microgravity experiment. Students will present their experiment winners, and they'll build the experiment. Projects will be conducted on the International Space Station. So this will actually have real-world implications. Jennifer Carter, who selected the students, will teach at the camp and serve as their mentor. All students were students at Rowan County Senior High School. Desiree McKinney is the youngest participant as a sophomore. Ian Gordon is a junior, and Sonny Erst. Mason Bush, Taylor Barber, and Chelsea Pruitt are seniors. Emma Mayer and Taylor Cash are freshmen at Morehead State University. They all demonstrate excellence in space science and are proactive with their education, said Carter. These students grasp the magnitude of being selected and have already achieved so much in this field at their young ages. The students will spend 2 consecutive weekends at the Kentucky Space Science Center in Louisville, training and learning in preparation in hopes of sending their project into space. Microgravity experiments aid in understanding the effects of gravity on biological, chemical, and physical systems. There's actually 2 more pages about this. So this is wonderful. This is great. This is Kentuckians getting into science, space exploration, and they get to actually conduct a science that will be, a project that is passed will actually go to the International Space Station. So we're going to end on a high note. There was some crazy things that were happening in Kentucky. Every week, I feel like I can just sort of Google search Kentucky news, and there's always just a handful of sort of crazy behavior. And I'm not for sure why. Times are tough, and there is all the poverty, so I think that probably has a lot to do with a lot. There's homelessness, 10,000 homeless kids in Louisville, and 1 out of 4 kids all throughout the state are poor. 800,000 Kentuckians are in poverty. And if you think you're free in this country, try to have no money and see how free you are. So it's all about the economics, and if you want better economics, you should vote for progressives. In fact, progressives have a track record of increasing wages for everybody, but for some reason, a lot of middle-class folks can see and understand taxes when they're being taxed, but they ignore some of the tax breaks that they get. And some of the tax things that they get, some of they get breaks and they get incentives and other things. So and they benefit, right? They benefit with public roads and stuff, just like anybody else. So progressives put more money in the working class people's pockets. Sometimes they're too focused on just the unions and the workers. But I think we could be like Germany, and we could do capitalism, we could do socialism better. So this is a good thing. I think what is right and good about Kentucky can fix what is wrong and bad about Kentucky. And we got a whole host of issues that we need to be working on. We're at number 1 in pollution, number 1 in child deaths and child abuse cases. We're number 1 for cancer, number 1 for just a whole bunch of stuff. And the lack of civics and democracy in the classrooms, I think, has a lot to do with it. We have low turnout rates. There's There's all this addiction. If you want to stop addiction, marijuana isn't a gateway drug. It is an end drug, and so I would much rather see Kentuckians smoking marijuana than to be cooking up meth and some of your other hard drugs illegally. So I think that's actually what would happen. You legalize marijuana and people would be smoking marijuana, and it wouldn't be a gateway drug. It's a gateway drug right now because when you realize that all society is lying to you, it's not alcohol. Alcohol is worse than marijuana. And so alcohol is perfectly legal, but when you realize that marijuana is not a Schedule I narcotic, you realize that they're lying. What else are they lying about? And then you try all these other drugs, you're like, okay, those are some hardcore drugs. They should be illegal. I mean, pills are some of the hardest drugs out there. Alcohol is one of the worst drugs. And so, yeah, I mean, Conway's doing this racist war on drugs. More black people are going to prison for just simple marijuana possession when our number one cash crop is marijuana. So since the number one cash crop is marijuana, we're moonshiners. You can't mess with the hill people, and the war on drugs has been a miserable failure. All alternatives have been successes. Let's take Portugal. Portugal had a huge, horrible drug problem, and what they did is they decriminalized marijuana, and now they're instead of criminalizing people for getting into drugs, it's a public health issue, and that's how they treat it, is through a public health perspective, through a public health lens. So there's a small little update, Kentucky news update for February 19th, 2015.